told last week no when I had asked the question about Johannes's position. I'd been told that it was a project for the long term. Oh no, things have changed in the Norwich City camp since that awful result and performance, again, away from home, this time to Millwall. That is right. For those of you that have just joined, breaking news coming out of Norwich City Football Club today. Johannes Hoff Thorup has been sacked as the head coach of Norwich City Football Club. A statement reading from Norwich City today, about 35 minutes ago, a bit longer now, says, Norwich City have parted company with head coach Johannes Hoff Thorup with immediate effect. Assistant head coach Glenn Riddlesham has also left his position with the club. Sporting director Ben Napper has said, whilst we made this appointment with a long-term focus and in line with our wider club strategy and direction, unfortunately, recent results and performances have deemed it necessary for us to make a change. I'd like to place on record our sincere thanks to Johannes and Glenn. They are both fantastic people who work tirelessly to help improve and move our football club forwards. We wish the two of them the best in the next stage of their respective careers. Jack Wilshere, assisted by Tony Roberts and Nick Stanley, will now take charge of the first team on an interim basis for our two remaining Sky Bet Championship fixtures of the season. The club will now progress with its plans of appointing a new permanent head coach in due course. That is right, people, for those of you that have just joined. Johannes Hoff Thorup has been sacked as Norwich City head coach. I'm going to try and get through as many of your comments as possible. There's already almost 1,000 of you that have joined me this Tuesday lunchtime. Just to let you know, we filmed our normal TNC podcast this morning at 7 a.m, as we always do. And we've had to scrap the whole thing. so a bit of empathy for me and Jack. He's going to come round tonight. Our plan is to make sure that we cover this in its entirety, this breaking news live, followed by Jack's own reaction video, which will be out as soon as possible. But we will do a Talk Norwich City, emergency Talk Norwich City podcast, which I hope will be out later on this evening. So for those of you that have just joined, one more reminder, huge breaking news. Johannes Hoff Thorup has been sacked as head coach of Norwich City. I tell you, folks, it's been wild. This morning, my WhatsApps are melting. My phone is going crazy. I have a couple of Norwich City players in my WhatsApps right now that are watching this. I'm not sure if they know what's going on or not. I certainly don't. A lot of you have already said Russell Martin in the comments. I'm going to bring up your comments already. A lot of you have already said Russell Martin. I just want you to know I have asked the question to Russell directly on WhatsApp at 12 o'clock. Hello, mate. Any conversation started with Norwich? So we'll see. Maybe Russ will give me a reply live on air and I'll see if I can read it out or not. Let's see. Look, it's massive, shocking news. There's absolutely no doubt about it. If you look at the recent run of results, it has been an absolute calamitous free fall in form for Norwich City Football Club since that last gasp Blackburn bottle job away from home. It has been awful result after awful result. Of course, a slight uptick with the win at home to West Brom after we parked the bus and Josh Sargent nicked the winner there. But apart from that, it's been awful. You know, drawing at home to Oxford, poor. Losing in the manner that we did to Sheffield Wednesday at home at Carrow Road, embarrassingly poor. Losing away at Bristol City without barely scratching them, poor. Plymouth, I mean, don't even start me on Plymouth Argyle. The fact that we've lost to them is an absolute calamity. Drawing at home to Sunderland just about kept us hoping that it would be okay. But oh no, it was a walk in the park for Burnley. An absolute pummeling by Portsmouth, who have only won 2 away games all season and then rocked up to Carrow Road and we made them look like Real Madrid. And then, of course, we got mauled by Millwall. So, yeah, it's absolutely massive. To be honest with you, folks, I don't know what to say. I didn't expect it. I put it out there on social media after the Millwall game that I really, really wanted it to work out for Johannes Hoff Thorup. I like him as a person. I like the football that he wanted to try to play. But it's clear that Ben Napper, it's clear that maybe the Atenasios and Norfolk Holdings Group had another idea of kind of where things were going. It's really interesting seeing this kind of word transition chucked about. I need a drink, sorry. It's really interesting, this kind of word transition chucked about this season. But the truth is, and it really hurts me to say this because I say I really wanted it to work, but we have transitioned into a low-end championship side, not one that's anywhere near pushing for the playoffs. Just whilst I take a drink, here's the statement from Norwich City Football Club. So there we have it, folks. It is out there. Jack Wilshere will be taking charge. I did a Talk Norwich City Insight piece with Robbie from AFTV earlier on this season. He said to me, Jack Wilshere will have his eye on the head coach job. Interested to know your thoughts on that. Jack Wilshere will be taking interim charge. Right, here we go then, folks. It's time. I'm going to be going through all of your comments right now, starting from the top. Chris Harvey on X says Russell Martin or Lee Carsley for me. Wow, interesting. Yeah, look, I honestly, Russ, everyone knows where I stand with Russ, the Norfolk Cafu, a friend, a Norwich City legend, someone that does play similar football-ish to the way that Johannes Hoff Thorup wants to play. He's a manager that I wholeheartedly believe would do a very good job with our football club. However, it does worry me that we're bringing back a legend. We're bringing back someone with so much history of our football club. And by the way, as me and Jack said on our podcast, that we've now had to delete and have to do it. We're refilming tonight. We mentioned that actually, does Russell Martin want to come back to Norwich? Which is, I think a lot of Norwich fans are like, oh yeah, we'll get Russell Martin in. It'll be totally fine. Well, actually, the way Russell Martin was treated by not lots of people, by two people at Norwich City Football Club, being made to train with the under-23s, despite his legendary status, does he really want to come back to Norwich City? Will he demand a higher paycheck? Will he see himself as bigger as Norwich City Football Club? Now we're at the bottom end of the Championship and he has successfully got Southampton promoted to the Premier League. But look, it's an interesting way to kick things off. Russell Martin is a name that I'm sure will be all over the bookies. Just a quick comment from Simon. He says, feel sorry for Johannes Hoff Thorup not given a decent hand to work with. Look, I can see this two ways. I would say he had a lot of the players that David Wagner had, and we got ourselves into the playoffs. We had a tremendous home run. But I also empathise and feel sorry for Johannes Simon as well, because I think throughout this season, he's had more injury crises than any other Norwich City manager. He's had 3 injury crises to deal with this season. That's not his fault. He has had disciplinary issues this season. Again, that's not his fault, is it? You know, a kick of a board or a spit on someone or someone like that. That's not Johannes's fault, is it? But look, where I do think Johannes is to take responsibility and accountabilities for the tactics, is for the personnel, is in for the motivation, the buy-in. This is really difficult for a young manager to achieve, right? And we forget that Daniel Farke, when he was at the football club, he had more experienced people around him to help mitigate against that. But for Johannes, not entirely sure whether he had the full respect of the of the changing room from the minute he walked in the door, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think on the whole, Simon, I would agree with you. I do feel sorry for Johannes. He's had a lot of players that are coming to the end of their careers with the club. Those that have potentially had their road run, those that see themselves as better than Norwich City Football Club, those that have already had offers / have got moves in the pipeline for this summer, those that were, I need to be careful here, those that were fishing for moves in January, I'll say. Look, I do feel for Johannes in that respect, but ultimately, Simon, it's football, and responsibility and accountability lies with him. It's his team, and it hasn't worked out. And I think the thing that's important to consider here is culture comes from the top. It comes from the top in any organization, right? And so, yes, you can have players out of contract. Yes, you can have players that are not quite ready. Yes, you can have, the fans on your back, but, it's important that you set your stall out straight. And I'm not sure, from what I know, whether Johannes had made it abundantly clear what the objective was this season, or at least clear enough from what I've been told. David Wagner, when he was here, this is from players, by the way, had always said, we're going up this season. We're going to be in the top 2 as our target. Then, of course, we failed that objective. It was then right. We're in the playoffs. We're getting 3rd place. That's where we're getting. And then we didn't. It was like, right, okay, fine. Next up, we're definitely getting 4th place, right, et cetera, et cetera. So it was so well defined what the objective was. And I think almost, and you could tell from his comments, well, his lack of comment, his pause when Chris Gorham from Radio Norfolk, in his post-match after Pompey read out Zoe's programme piece saying we hadn't achieved our objective this season, there was this pause of, interesting. So that shows that there was a bit of discrepancy, not on the same hymn sheet, perhaps. These are all questions that I'm sure Ben Knapp will answer in due time. Right, here we go. Let's get through more comments. I'm just going to quickly look at the time because I've got meetings and BBC Radio Norfolk calling me at 1 o'clock. So I'm going to go until then. Daddy Jamie said, Daddy Jamie, love that. Congratulations, Daddy Jamie. Steve Cooper for the job. That's a name that I haven't heard yet. Steve Cooper. Let us know in the comments if you fancy Steve Cooper. Now, this is an interesting one from Ian Dack. Clearly lost the dressing room. Look, I wouldn't go as far as that. But it's pretty blindingly obvious that the players weren't, all of the players anyway, were giving everything for this manager. Who knows? Maybe they knew he was on the tight ropes. I don't have any intel at the moment because, as I say, it's come as a massive shock that this has happened, to be honest with you. So for those of you that have just joined, by the way, 2,500 of you are now watching Talk Norwich City. Welcome aboard for this breaking news live. That's right. There's my shocked face. Johannes Hoff Thorup has been sacked as the Norwich City Football Club head coach. Let's read this statement from Norwich City Football Club one more time. Norwich City have parted company with head coach Johannes Hoff Thorup with immediate effect. Head coach, forgive me, I need a coffee. Assistant head coach Glenn Riddlesham has also left his position with the club. Sporting director Ben Knapp said, whilst we made this appointment with a long-term focus and in line with our wider club strategy and direction, unfortunately, recent results and performances have deemed it necessary for us to make a change. I'd like to place on record our sincere thanks to Johannes and Glenn. They're both fantastic people who work tirelessly to help improve and move our football club forwards. We wish all the best these two. We all wish the 2 of them the best in the next stage of their respective careers. Jack Wilshere, assisted by Tony Robertson and Nick Stanley, will take charge of the first team on an interim basis for our 2 remaining Sky Bet Championship games of the season. The club will now progress with its plans of appointing a new permanent head coach in due course. Let's go back to the comments section because lots of you are getting in your comments of who you want as the next manager. Let's try and read a few of these out. Tizup says, looking forward to this. Here you go. Well, welcome aboard. Cheesy Potato says, is anyone else completely shocked? Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a lot of shock. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that say it's not a surprise. Let's see. Joe says, I think Russell Martin would be good at our club. Yeah, Russell Martin seems to be the most popular pick at the moment amongst the Norwich City faithful. Nobby says, it's like we don't learn anything. Interesting thoughts there. Let's see. To contradict against the others that want the Norfolk Cafu back, Andy Chapman is very shocked. Please not. Russell Martin. Interesting indeed. Darren says that Russ Martin is dusting off the PowerPoint. Interesting. This is an interesting one from Charlie. Useless board nappers himself. What's the point? Waste of a season. Interesting. I think, Charlie, some of the Norwich fans will say it's decisive, it's definitive, it's quick action. You want your club to, if they think not sure about this, you want them to make that call as soon as possible so that they don't waste any summer transfer window time. So I can see that two ways. I think the writing might have been on the wall, though, to be honest with you, Charlie. I mean, you saw West Brom dismiss their manager for less. You've seen other football clubs move their manager on for less worse form than Johannes. So I think it's been going on for a while, this train of thinking. Bridget James says, right decision. NCFC have acted promptly for once. There you go, Charlie. That kind of goes against your point. The Bridget. For those of you Norwich City fans will know the Bridget. She knows what she's talking about. Right decision. Norwich City have acted promptly for once. So just a quick update, folks. What's going on today? So this is the breaking news live that I'm doing. I'm going to be on BBC Radio Norfolk as well at 1 o'clock. So that's when I'm going to finish this live, or attempt to anyway, unless I pass out in the meantime, because it's pretty shocking news. Me and Jack actually filmed our Talk Norwich City podcast this morning at 7 a.m. and now we've had to delete the whole thing because no one expected this news. Just to kind of be really honest and transparent with our subscribers as well, I was tipped off about the news, I think 3 or 4 minutes before it was announced. So that just shows you that, you know, this was something that wasn't predicted. It wasn't pre-planned. I'm often given the news a little bit more in advance than 3 or 4 minutes beforehand. So I think this comes as a shock to the Norwich City players as well. To be honest with you, I've got a few in my WhatsApp now, which is interesting. And also for those of you that missed the start of the show, I have actually, someone's ringing me now. I wonder who that is. Ooh, could be Russell Martin. Is it Russell Martin? Hang on a minute. Let me just check that number. Hang on. That would have been a real faux pas if I'd just hung up on Russell Martin. When did I send that message? What's that number? 07. In fact, sorry, I should read that. 59. Hang on. Sit tight, folks. Could you imagine? Hello, Russ. I'm on a Talk Norwich City live. Do you want the job? Hang on. Was it him? I don't know whether it was him or not, but anyway, there we go. Let's continue on with the comment section. As you can tell, I'm all over the place today. Oakley says, good afternoon, Chris. Good afternoon, Oakley. Hope you are good. Lewis is gone. Who do you want in, Chris? Whoa, that's very early, Lewis. To be honest with you, I haven't even thought about that yet. And that's not me sitting on the fence. I just literally haven't thought about it. I'm still pretty shocked, to be honest with you, at this news that's come out of the football club. Despite the run of form, it was made abundantly clear by the hierarchy this was a decision for the long term. It wasn't going to be something that was just going to be, you know, something this season, etc. So yeah, look, it's very interesting. So just on the Russell Martin piece, I have WhatsApped him. Hello, mate. Any conversation started with Norwich? So there you go. We shall see whether I hear back from him whilst this live broadcast is going on. I kind of hope I don't, to be honest with you, because it might be quite awkward. Jake says, get the Norfolk Cafu in, lads. There you go. Craig says, have you got his number? Yes, I do. Whole season wasted. Interesting comment there. What else have we got? Here we go. Jeff Man. Is Napa sacking him basically admitting he made the wrong choice in appointing Johannes Hoff Thorup? I don't think so, Jeff Man. I don't think so. I think, to be honest, I'm actually quite impressed that Ben Napper's done this. It would have been very easy for Ben to sit on the sidelines, ride out this season, continue to watch us get, you know, beaten back to back. But at least now, if we get beaten with with Jack Wilshere in charge, they've already made that decision, right? If we don't pick up a win from now until the end of the season, that would be 1 win in 12. That's right, 1 win in 12 games. It's currently 1 win in 10 games. So, Jeff, man, I don't think it's Napper admitting that he's hired the wrong guy. I think it's Ben Napper being decisive, and for that, I think he deserves some credit for that. So, here we go. Let's see this from Nobby. I hate everything about this move. I hate what it says about us. Why bring the manager with a long-term view and then sack him before the season's end? Well, Nobby, to play devil's advocate with you, I think it's because they could see it wasn't working. And the run of form for a club of our shape and size and stature, the clubs that we were losing to convincingly. I mean, the defending has been Sunday League standard. And I know many of you will go, well, that's not Johannes's fault. Well, no-ish, but ultimately he is fully accountable, responsible for those Norwich City players and their actions. So look, it's very, very interesting. There is so many suggestions here. Lewis says Martin. That's Russ, obviously, not Martin O'Neill. That would be a very old school move. Bring him back. Gary O'Neill or Mowbray. Interesting 3 shouts there from Lewis. Get in your shouts for who you think will be manager. A bit of support here from Gentle. 1969 says, come on, Super Jack Wilshere. Look, well, absolutely. It's going to be really interesting, this. Really, really interesting on what goes on. Now, regarding everything, sorry, my WhatsApp's melting. I'm losing track. Let me focus. It's going to be really interesting to see how Jack Wilshere does, what team he puts out, whether he goes old school, experienced players, whether he goes for all new players. Of course, he's got a lot of experience of being really successful with the Arsenal under-18s. That's where he got a lot of credibility in the football industry. That's what Robbie Lar from AFTV said to me in our live when we brought him in. Hey, it'd be worth watching that back now. Actually, if you want to know some more information about Jack Wilshere and what he's about, then do jump onto that one, myself and Robbie from AFTV. So, folks, of those of you that have just joined, 3,379 of you, thank you, by the way. Thank you for joining us. It is massive, massive, massive news. We can't believe it. Jack and I have canned our podcast we filmed this morning. I was told 3 minutes before the news came out that it was happening. Johannes has been sacked. There's my stupid shocked face for the thumbnail. That YouTube hype and all that. Here's the form. Not that any of you Norwich City fans want a reminding of the form, but it's been absolutely horrific. It has been a huge disaster, a downturn in form that has seen Norwich City slip beyond mid-table. And actually, the way that this season's panning out, we could end up 1 point above the relegation zone. So it's nowhere near good enough for our football club. Let's go back to the comments section whilst I briefly flick through WhatsApp to see if Russell Martin's replied to me. No, he's not. That'd be so, I would love that if that happened. Alfie says Gary O'Neill, Chris. Look, I like Gary O'Neill as a person. I've had the pleasure and privilege of interviewing him on the Talk Norwich City podcast, an audio exclusive where he spoke about his time at our club. He's certainly a leader of men. He is certainly someone that galvanizes. It feels quite Alex Neil. I'd be open to it. I don't know. I feel like that's a bit of a switch, though, in terms of the players that we've brought in, where we want to go, what we want to achieve. I think Napper really would be ripping it all up unless Gary O'Neill has all of a sudden decided that he wants to play, that sort of possession-based football, unless I don't have much of an understanding on Gary O'Neill. So, yeah, I'm open to a bit of Gary O'Neill. He's certainly got a cracking chant. It's better than Zidane. We've got Gary O'Neill. What a chant. I remember singing that at Palace when we got trash there. Anyway, Neil Harrison. We need to stop the rot since Farke was sacked. Interesting. I think there's a lot of Norwich fans are kind of trying to alter history on Daniel Farke. We have to remember that he hadn't won a game in 10 games in the Premier League. We have to remember... Actually, no, I need to be careful there as well. Look, Daniel Farke was sacked. The problem I don't think was sacking Daniel Farke. The problem was not getting in the right man to replace him. And this is important to say, in Daniel's defence, we didn't give Daniel Farke the backing. The fact that we spent 300 grand on Sam Bloody Byram is an absolute atrocity. There you go. Need another coffee. Anyway, that's a side subject. So thank you so much for joining me for this Talk Norwich City breaking news live. For those of you that have somehow not seen the news by now, Johannes Hoff Thorup has been sacked as Norwich City head coach. We didn't think it was going to happen. We might have thought it might have happened at the end of the season, but they might have thought there's not a hope in hell we're winning the last 2 games, so we may as well make that change now. And fair play to Ben Napper for doing that. To be quite frank, says, I'm not impressed. Interesting. Owen Darby says the right decision. Piano Man is clearly on the Lakens offer, 20% off in the YouTube description. Jack says, legend, Chris. That's kind. Thanks, Jack. Appreciate you joining me for that. It's very kind. Charlie says, in my opinion, Russell Martin is no good. Interesting. This is interesting from Finley. Players really should have done better. Soon as Johannes Hoff Thorup criticised them for the Blackburn equaliser, we've been shocking. Finley, I think you've got a fairly raised point there, and you know, I think we're all now kind of trying to join the dots of, you know, who said what, when, and why, and where it all went wrong. You know, you could say the form started to go bad when Jack Wilshere joined. You could say the form had gone bad since the discipline issues with Kenny, with Borja. You could say the form went bad when Johannes opted to park the bus rather than playing his Hofball style. There's so many things that you could say. Honest with you, I think it was a case of it all just felt like a pack of cards and everything stacked against him. But it's interesting on the players, Finley. Jack and I spent a good hour, which is now not being released until later on. We're recording a whole new podcast. We spent pretty much a whole hour really piling into the Norwich City players, actually. You know, we don't like to pick out individuals, but I have to say, I think the players have let this manager down. I do. Not completely. I think obviously Johannes does hold, you know, accountability and responsibility as the head coach, but this squad has lacked leaders. It's been very obvious in this downturn of form, well, this fall off a cliff in form, that people haven't been willing to step up. There's been a lack of tackles. There's been a lack of leaders. There's been a lack of impetus. There's been a lack of fight, a lack of desire, lack of passion. And these are all fundamentals. And I was talking about this with Jack on the podcast that we've now deleted. And we said, you know, this isn't now a case of, you know, do you remember when we could have beaten Blackburn and got into the playoffs, and the Norwich fans were talking about tactics and personnel and substitutions and Johannes' style? He said, we're way beyond that now, folks. We're now in this place of the lads just don't look like what they want it. And people label that as lazy or an easy thing to say, that the lads, you know, lack desire. But when you've got, you know, Hoff came out and said that after Pompey, spoke about motivation. Johannes Hoff, Josh Sargent came out after the Millwall game and said that we needed to show more passion. The lads needed to show that they wanted to play for the crest on the front of the shirt or something of such. It's on the Talk Norwich City social. So the fundamentals are missing now. And when you get to that stage where the bare bone basics of a football team aren't there, you know, away from tactics, that probably does lie at the manager's door, to be honest with you. So it's a very interesting one. Harry says, sacking more managers than Watford wasn't on my 2024 to 25 season bingo card. We're not quite at that level yet, Harry, but you're right. It's an interesting one, to say the least. Lots of Norwich fans would have wanted us to keep Johannes for next season. I have to admit, I think I was one of those people. I'm not afraid to say it. I wanted Johannes to have, you know, serious investment this summer and, you know, proper backing with the players that he wants. I do think he was dealt some pretty unfortunate cards. Maybe a case of right manager, wrong time. Maybe a case of he just wasn't ready. We have to remember that this was a really inexperienced manager from Denmark. And I say that with respect. It was a calculated gamble, and that calculated gamble has clearly not paid off, and that's why Ben Napper has made that decision. And hey, I'm sure the Atenasios, the Norfolk Holdings Group, have had their impetus into this as well. Just want to quickly say a huge thank you to almost 4,000 of you that are watching me talk nonsense on camera at the moment. I'm struggling to keep up with it all. My WhatsApps are melting. Don't really know what the hell's going on, so feel free to update me in the comment section as I go. But yeah, it's massive. As I say, I didn't expect it. I was told this news 3 minutes before it happened, that it was going to happen. I was told last week that no, this is the writing's not on the wall. So clearly something changed after the Millwall game, because pre-Pompey I was told he's not getting sacked, which is really interesting. And this was from people within the football club. So yeah, I think this is an interesting way of, and I think this is a fair way of putting it from James, to be honest with you. I think it's nail on the head. Shocked but not surprised. I think that's probably where I'm at, James, actually. As the news is starting to sink into my bloodstream now, I think I'm the same. I am shocked because I kind of expected us to go a little bit longer with Johannes, even if it was just to the end of the season. But I'm not surprised, and I would agree with that. When you are, putting in, this run of results against some of the absolute bang average pub sides of this league, a club of our shape, size and stature should not be losing in the manner they are to those teams. We shouldn't. And people will say, oh, Chris, you're being arrogant, or, oh, Chris, you're so entitled. No. I've got standards. I've got standards for our football club. I know where we've come from. I know about the money that we've got at this football club at our disposal. There's no way this run of form should be happening. It struck serious alarm bells. So thank you so much for those of you that have joined. There's 5 minutes left of this, but to be honest with you, I might have to conclude things because I'm now going on BBC Radio Norfolk. If you want more of my nonsense, I'm going to be on BBC Radio Norfolk at 1 o'clock, reacting to this huge breaking news that Johannes Hoff Thorup has been sacked as the head coach of Norwich City. Jack will have his own special reaction piece. You know what Jack's like when he gets on the old mic. He thinks he's all proper and posh. He'll be doing his piece on it. That'll be out later on. And also, just to let you know, the podcast questions that you got in for the podcast that was meant to be out today, it's been cancelled, terminated, destructed. We're not releasing it. We are doing a whole new emergency Talk Norwich City podcast. Jack's coming around mine at 6:30 tonight, so it'll be out later on. All right. So all of the action for all of the latest stuff, please do tune in to Talk Norwich City. And I will keep you updated in due course if Russell Martin replies to my WhatsApp, because I have messaged him. Hello, mate. Any conversation start with Norwich City? So let's see if that comes in. Look, really interesting times for Norwich City now. A huge decision has been made by Norwich City's board. And of course, Ben Napper, Johannes Hoff Thorup, has been sacked as head coach of Norwich City Football Club. Thank you so much for tuning into this breaking news. Talk Norwich City live reaction. Blimey, where do we go from here? Stay tuned, folks. And thank you so much for tuning in. See you tonight for a emergency Talk Norwich City podcast. Thank you.